The growing number of women veterans and their unique mental and physical health care needs when re-entering civilian society is so critical. We need to examine the adequacy of the current resources offered and the possible solutions for systemic failure. It's important because more and more women are exiting the military and being untreated for their military sexual trauma and subsequent PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. As they work to reintegrate, the social system needs to be armed with a unique understanding and a solid network of targeted resources. The population that this project focuses on is the women veterans of the United States military and armed forces. There are an increasing number of women who are serving, and this means a denser female veteran population. Despite this growing number of women in uniform, the Department of Veterans Affairs has not adapted as much as necessary to meet the unique challenges faced by women who have served. This is especially true when it comes to women who were sexually assaulted while serving in the military. In recent years, there has been an explosion of publicity in the United States into the issue of military sexual trauma. Military sexual trauma is such a common occurrence that there is an entire category of military disability connected and dedicated to this issue. In an article by Carlson et al., they mention a staggering statistic about female service member growth, saying, the active duty force is 14% female, the largest proportion in history. However, despite this growth, there's not currently an adequate offering for how deeply this kind of trauma will affect the female veteran. There's also not a significant enough amount of licensed professionals within the VA to be able to adapt to and accommodate the needs of these veterans. This study examines that need. For data collection, I primarily conducted interviews. I interviewed 3 VA clinics, as well as the Phoenix Veterans Center and a Veterans Volunteer Services organization called Creative Drill Sergeants that works to provide recreational art therapy for recovering veterans. These interviews were conducted via Zoom and included some of the following questions for providers. How long have you worked here serving the veterans? What is your most rewarding part of doing this job? You have created compensation for these veterans. How many people who will apply for it tend to be approved? How many times must a woman tell her story to military or government officials in order to apply for MST-related compensation? Are counseling services free for victims of MST regardless of compensation status? Are MST services widely advertised to remove stigma and ensure knowledge of the services? How many providers in your clinic are specifically trained for MST-related struggles? Can an MST survivor request to be seen outside of the VA facility at VA expense if being triggered by being on a military property? What are challenges experienced by survivors of MST? What are the strengths of these MST survivors? Are there any additional services that this population needs that you feel like do not currently exist? I also interviewed at the Southwest CBOC for the VA Clinic, the Midtown Clinic PTSD Center, and the Phoenix VA Jade Opal Clinic. While conducting the interviews to gather the information needed to identify any systemic failures within the system that cares for female veterans, I noticed some trends. The most significant trend was that nearly 80% of providers who were interviewed openly expressed that they feel the system is currently inadequate. The most significant suggestions for change and highlighted lack of resources was that there needs to be more training across the field, there needs to be more funding dedicated to this need specifically, and there needs to be more transitional support for veterans as they leave the military.
Overall, this needs assessment was a great learning opportunity for me. I was able to learn more about the organization and the systemic failures that are faced by female veterans in America. Additionally, though, I was able to learn about my own processes through research and needs assessments, and I was able to grow as a researcher. I learned that I should give my interviews more time. I learned that I should plan backup interviews. I also learned that if I'm passionate about a subject, researching on it is easy and even entertaining. I grew my passion as a social worker and grew my knowledge of the needs of the people that are encompassed within this needs assessment presentation. I learned about the services that are currently offered to female American veterans and the services that are still needed to be developed in order to fully address these needs.